Welcome everyone, as you all start joining. Welcome to today's Tribal Total Experience webinar. For those of you first timers, we're just going to give it a couple of minutes whilst everyone logs in. I can see attendees coming in at a rate of knots, so we'll just give everyone a chance to get settled. And before we begin, I hope everyone's doing well today at another week in lockdown, and so these Thursdays seem to be the sort of sticking point of the week where it's sort of my measurement of when a week's gone by, because I'm back on here presenting, which is fun to do.
Amazing. Weekly.
Yeah, it's interesting when you have that sort of one point of the week, isn't it? It's that sort of, oh, I'm here again.
Yeah. At least you know what day it is.
Exactly, yeah. That seems to be one of the ongoing things at the moment, people not knowing what day it is. But
Yeah.
clearly everyone joining us does, because they know 11 o'clock on a Thursday means Tribal. So thank you everyone for joining today. Again, just give it one more minute, let a couple more people come on in. I hope you're all looking forward to it today. For those of you who haven't joined before, I'll sort of go through sort of a bit of intro in a minute, but we like these sessions to be nice and interactive. So I'll talk you through how you can submit questions in real time as we go through today's subject. For those of you new to Zoom as well, in the top right corner, you can adjust your view of how you're seeing our videos. So if you decide gallery view or a different format, please adjust that to your likings. We've got a hand up there. Sure. Alexander, if you have a question, did you want to sort of message me directly? So, oops, hand's gone down. Never mind. Okay. Yes, so please adjust your viewing windows as you like. We'll get started now, I think, as the numbers seem to be slowing down. Okay. Fantastic. So hello and welcome everyone, and to the latest edition in our series of webinars, sort of looking to tackle topics all around the current situation that we're facing. My name is Jamie Willey. I'm the Business Development Director here at Tribal London, and I help lead the ideation and creation of the strategies and propositions for new clients considering to partner with Tribal. And for those of you who haven't heard of us before, Tribal Worldwide is the total experience agency. And what we mean by that is we think beyond the established customer experience and work with brands to innovate in their customer journeys. So from online to offline, out of home and in store, as well as internal engagement processes and procedures to create ecosystems that build better products, services, communications, but ultimately better businesses. And these events really help us do this by bringing together industry leaders from a diverse range of sectors and companies to provide new points of view and learn from each other, quite frankly, on how we can deliver new, better and more total experiences that change the face of businesses to help them better serve their customers. So the question we're looking at today is how can we collaborate to deliver innovation when working remotely and when consumer behaviours and economic ecosystems are changing so rapidly. And so in this session, we'll be exploring kind of how brands and agencies can work together to deliver projects quickly and effectively when the need to innovate and change is more prevalent than ever. And we're really lucky to be joined by two extremely talented and highly experienced individuals. We have our very own David Balco, our Chief Client Officer. David's responsible for all the client relationships here at Tribal, including all of the current work going on with Volkswagen. He's got 22 years experience across digital, above the line, mobile, design, pretty much every discipline going. And has been responsible for managing a number of teams in his tenure. David has delivered innovative, strategic, compelling and award-winning digital and omnichannel solutions for some of the world's biggest brands, including Apple, Volkswagen and Vodafone. And we're equally as lucky to be joined today by Linda Davidson, who heads up technology operations and transformation over at Essence. So welcome, Linda. And Linda's, this isn't her first event. Linda helped helped start these series of events back when they were physical, back in the olden days, back in October last year. So really happy to have Linda back. And for those of you who may recognise her, Linda was an actor, appearing on EastEnders, and is now happily resting. Was happily resting, was writing for the BBC Science Strand, including Tomorrow's World, back when the engineers were making ones and zeros communicate across the heavens for something called a website. The potential really for communicating and telling stories in different ways engulfed Linda's imagination, and she literally had a career change overnight and went to work on the launch of the BBC Online as a junior researcher, then later as an executive producer for the online drama and entertainment channels. She was then headhunted to launch E4, has worked at Discovery Networks as Global Director of Digital Production, before going back to the BBC and Channel 4, was Director of Digital, Digital Technology and Information for the Jamie Oliver Group, and is now at Group M as Director of Transformation. So, gosh, with that rap sheet, I think we're in good hands here today.
God, I can hardly string a sentence together these days.
So,
thank you for that intro.
No problem. So welcome both. And really, I just wanted to sort of start with just some opening, I guess, musings, if you will, some thoughts around this subject that we've just sort of outlined, around this sort of new agile and way of working as consumer behaviours and ecosystems are changing, and both from your individual senior perspectives, how that's impacting you now and the clients you're working with, and quite frankly what the clients are needing to do. And perhaps Linda, we'll start with you on that. Love to get your point of view.
Well, we're all communicating and collaborating on Zoom. Who knew about Zoom 6 weeks ago? We never really even heard of Zoom. Now they've taken over the world. I think from my perspective, and if only I could find my notes that I wrote this morning, the brand and brand loyalties, I think, are changing, and customer behaviours have changed. So if I can just give a micro example of that, I historically would shop at supermarkets because I'm at work all day, and the convenience of doing online shopping is colossal. However, my local shops have started to deliver. They've all closed down. So in order to support them, I have been shopping local, and they've been delivering. So they've pivoted their businesses, and I've pivoted my loyalty. I won't go back to supermarket shopping now. I can't imagine that I would. And similarly, we're using the Zoom platform to meet all of our mates. I just had a meeting first thing this morning, 8 o'clock, with a mate who got made redundant in November, struggling a little bit. So we had a bit of a chat. And so collaboration with our peer groups and our friends and our relatives, our families, they've all changed. And I'm just wondering, how that will change for businesses. Will it be bricks and mortar going forward? Will that be as important? Again, on a micro level, I was scoring a software provider for some services that they provide. And the weighting of the scoring was that having somebody local in market rather than virtual was high. But actually, my perspective's completely changed. I don't care whether they're in market now. As long as they've got a good SLA that can support us, it doesn't really matter. Whereas before, it was significantly important. So I think, small things like that are changing. I think we'll have to wait and see how it bottoms out. But I think the key to this is looking and noticing changes in the way that our traditional consumers are now consuming and communicating and collaborating themselves.
Interesting. And David, from your perspective, what are you seeing?
Well, I think I'm looking at how a number of factors, both how the agency, our business, has changed internally, frankly, how we're working, but also how we're kind of working with our clients and solving the challenges that their brands face and the challenges they're posing to us. I think for me, it's given me quite an interesting insight, really, into sort of how we can overcome and adapt as a business, as brands, as marketeers, and so on. And also as just people and human beings, because we're all adapting daily. And as Linda pointed out, we are all changing certain behaviours that I think will continue on. And to build on Linda's point about shopping locally, the conversations I'm now having with some of my local suppliers, our local butcher, and one of our guys that owns a pub who's now turned it into a grocery store as well, and he's kind of adapting. But it's interesting, because I kind of pointed out to him, I said, look, you do realise that at some point a new normality will resume that, annoyingly might require me to get on a train again and go into London. And I might do it, 2 or 3 days a week rather than 4 or 5. But on those 2 or 3 days a week when I go into London, your facilities aren't going to be available to me because you're closed when I come home. And he went, I need to think about that, don't I? And I was like, yes. Because that's how he can adapt his business to continue us buying locally, doing whatever, serving our local community, all of those things. And I think those little adaptations are the things that are going to change. How brands behave on a bigger scale, I think is a really big question at the moment. And I think I kind of always say that they say that necessity is the mother of invention. And I think times of crisis are often when those great leaps are made. We were talking yesterday. That without getting graphic, the Black Death in the mid 14th century it was a major contributing factor to the Italian Renaissance. There was a terrible event, but people questioned authority. They questioned the status quo. They questioned what was happening. And as a consequence, new development took place. Well, I think we might be in a similar circumstances. Often wars and times of great change force innovation to expand and to accelerate, because the war machine demands those things that often then benefit society after that event. I don't think today's crisis is any different. Actually, I think we are going to see great change. The question I've got, and I know that one of the questions also it came from one of the participants from HSBC, was around how will we go back to normal? How will it change? What will normal be like? And I think it's dangerous to listen to anyone who says that they have the answers, because I don't think any of us have the answers yet. I think we're very new into this situation, but I think things will change, and it's only those organisations that can adapt quickly and pivot quickly are the ones that will survive in the long run. I'll talk a bit more about that later on.
No, thank you, David. And yeah, as you mentioned it, the question from Nicola there was sort of around, sort of keen to know if human behaviour will change for the long term post COVID-19, or if we'll just kind of, quite frankly, ease back into our usual behaviours and ways of working, buying behaviour, etc. And the question really sort of was bookended there around kind of how best to be agile during those times, really. So as sort of you brought that up, and I know that we spoke about this at length sort of last night as well. And Linda, I was keen to sort of get your thoughts on that as a question as well.
Nicola's question.
Yeah.
Well, as David says, I don't think any of us know the answers quite yet. I think, or indeed, if we ever do know the answer, it's always an evolution, isn't it? We try something, we see what works, what sticks, and then move and move along that line or that curve. I think there will be a new normal, this phrase that's become very prevalent. I think there will be a different perspective, a different lens that we see things through, whether that's social purpose, whether it's how we think and feel about being together in public spaces. Things will change, but not everything will change. We don't need to throw everything up in the air and see where it lands. We will have some consistency of thought. Again, it's just key to seeing, maybe looking at what our traditional customers are and what they're doing, and doing some research around that, and looking at some kind of behavioural data for our traditional audiences, our brand audiences, and seeing how they're behaving, and see what new products and services might fall out of those changes in your traditional audience's behaviours.
Absolutely. That's really interesting, and I know that. So we were discussing this as well, you know, and I'd like to sort of investigate the agility of our actual marketing, you know, and we spoke about this a lot, you know, and there's some great examples out there at the moment where essentially people have been activating real-time marketing, if you were, in a really authentic way, you know. Look at sort of Captain Tom raising incredible amounts of millions of pounds for the NHS. You know, there's a whole raft of brand examples out there where they've been able to kind of pivot their communication and messaging to the current situation. And I think that's what we sort of said last night. I think the really critical thing there is it's authentic. It's not just brands that have sort of created a character or created a sort of strap line. It's really close to everybody right now. How do you think, coming to you, David, how do you think that might sort of affect longer term how clients are assessing their marketing and assessing their strategies?
Yeah, I mean, I think that phrase authenticity is it's dangerous in some respects, because Captain Tom is authentic. You know, he's doing exactly what he wanted to do, and we've embraced it because it's authentic, because it's true. I think often brands can fall into the trap of creating authenticity and having a loose construct of that back to their brand guidelines, and it becomes, and their brand truths, and it becomes a little tenuous. And I think the question I would always ask is this true to the brand? Is this what the brand wants to be and do, or are we kind of forcing a squarish peg into a roundish hole, and it's not quite working? I mean, I think you know, looking at how this situation, the three areas for me that really kind of leapt out. One were collaboration. You know, we must still collaborate together. Comms is everything. We're doing these kind of things over Zoom, and it's I think great. I think continuing that internally and externally. I'm talking to my teams and my clients an awful lot more, oddly, than perhaps I did before. I think we're spending more time checking in on people, and there is a good friend of mine, Belinda Palmer, who's
she's amazing.
She's a great. I've worked with her years ago.
Have you? I've never met her, but I just follow her. Yeah, she's amazing.
The empathy that I think we're all showing towards each other is very good, and that must continue. I think, but also it's about staying true to your culture, your brand's culture, your company culture, but allowing it to thrive and adapt in this new kind of environment without kind of rigidly sticking to it. I think that's an important part of how we're working with our brands. And I think that all of that drives to the practicalities of working remotely. Use the time to think, but don't daydream, I think, is my point. Is often, I sit here looking out my window, oh, that's nice in the garden, and you process stuff differently, but actually do something. I think it's all, you can kind of sit and look at YouTube videos about how to make tables and think, oh, I might do that one day. Well, actually get up and have a go, or solve a problem in your marketing, or get on and do those things that perhaps you can't do. But get that balance right between, this is an interesting time to, as someone once said, stop, collaborate, and listen, right? And I think there's an interesting point there. It's take a breath, work together, listen to each other, and then do. Don't just, sit and dream. And I think the other part to this is it's the same, only different out there. The working remotely approach. Yeah, we still talk to each other. We still get the nuances out of each other. A bit harder to find sometimes, but it is still the same. We're trying to solve problems as a group of human beings. And then really, I think there's some other parts around how we deliver that into innovation, which I guess we can talk about a bit later on.
No, excellent. And Lindsay, you've had a lot of experience, essentially, writing content, creating content within sort of media channels, and so for you, kind of connecting with those audiences is really important, I can imagine. So I'd love to sort of understand a bit more from your perspective how that sort of maps through into what we're currently seeing and doing now.
Wow, that's an interesting thought and concept, and not one that I'd made myself. But if I can say as I'm thinking, so yes, communication has been everything. So as an actor, it's all about communicating the power of a writer's message. And the character that I played in EastEnders was a very powerful anti-Thatcherite character. She was the antidote to Thatcherism because she was living in such abject poverty. And that was the point of that character at the time. So communicating that, then obviously doing other stuff as an actor and communicating other people's thoughts. And then having that epiphany, if you like, of the potential of communication and telling stories in different ways when the engineers were making this website in 1996 or 7 or something. It was all about communication and telling stories. And so I needed to explore that. And I think now the power of communication and collaboration, again, is front and center of what we do, and as well what Tribal DDB do, but also Group M, is how we communicate a message, and that message being relevant and meaningful at the right time for people. And I think for me, in my role now, where I'm transforming an organization through technology, again, that is all about collaboration. It's delivering what people need to collaborate in the first instance, but also collaborating with them to deliver something that is going to be meaningful for them. So yeah, you're right, it has been a thread right the way through, and I hadn't made that link at all, so thank you for that.
No, you're welcome. I wish it had been my CV, because what a fantastic one.
I spent 20 years going out with clients and sort of going for lunch and getting drunk.
David and I work in sales, so no, it's great to hear. That's really interesting. And David, I know that on one of our previous webinars a few weeks ago, we did touch upon this kind of new agile and way of working. And I think one of the areas that you're really passionate about is culture. So just bringing it back into the business for a second, because we've spoken a bit about consumer behaviour, talking about sort of in business behaviour. Just wanted to hear a little bit more about, first of all, your thoughts around that for those that perhaps weren't on that call, but also how you've seen that evolve so quickly over the last few weeks, and how you've kind of kept on top of it.
I think that cultural thing is fascinating, and we're seeing it both at Tribal and Adam and Eve, and at the building that we work in at DDB, but also we're seeing it with our clients. I think that maintaining a sense of humour is massively important. We've all seen the I've been on loads of web meetings where my daughter's decided to wander in and have a chat, and it's fine.
Oh, don't! My son's just come in to use the printer,
rolling around on the floor. But it's fine, right? And again, we I think sometimes we're all a little bit too serious about life, and again, I it is only advertising. No one actually cares, right? I think that's a good starting point for many things, right? And actually, and that's a flippant but very serious comment in that. No one cares until you grab their attention. You get hold of them, and you inspire, frighten, make them laugh, whatever it might be. I think all of those things are. That's when people do care, and they make a decision. And they do something. I think we're the cultural shift that that we're seeing both internally as well as externally are fascinating to me. And I think, have a sense of humour about life, have fun, enjoy it. We're working very much in a kind of fortnightly, it's sprint-based kind of almost operational manner in terms of our company, because we report to we're part of Omnicom. There's a lot of shifting sands at the moment. We're almost working like that because our clients are making some big changes and short-term decisions that mean our businesses adapt. But also at the same time, I think it allows us to do stuff, see whether it works, continue it. This whole series of webinars is a good thing. We kind of toyed with it a bit before COVID. Well, COVID's forced that to happen. Well, the next question is should we continue doing those, and so on. And those kind of internal decisions, those internal changes are making a big deal. And actually, for me, agencies are really good at this. We do this every day because we work with such a diverse range of clients. One finds oneself kind of saying, well, okay, 1 minute I'm talking to Volkswagen about car launches and what they're doing in this crisis about their launch. The next thing I'm talking to perhaps one of our Wren Kitchens client about what their challenges are. And then the next thing we're doing a new business, Jamie and I are doing a new business thing with a retailer in South America. And it's fascinating that we're very good at adapting, and it almost comes into second nature to us in the agency world. Whereas I think for many clients, that's it's a real kind of epicenter of change, and that's quite hard to manage. For me, I think this is the thing: is do what agencies do when it is about keep making decisions. The moment you stop making decisions is a terrible moment. You keep making decisions and course correct along the way, but don't rush it. I think there's this tendency to rush into a decision. And we've seen it a little bit with some of our clients where they've asked us can you just quickly do something? Just do it. It's really important. And then actually we find out at the end of it, well, that maybe wasn't the best thing to do. And this situation has forced that rush of change without that kind of, again, stop, collaborate and listen. It's always that pause where, are we doing the right thing? Is it true to the brand, even in this new circumstances, even in the norm? And I think it's about using this time to get your agency partners to help in those things, and we're doing that with all our current and some new clients. And ironically for us, we're in a wonderful position at the moment. Our new business inquiries are through the roof, really. And that's quite interesting in terms of there are brands out there still making decisions and looking beyond the current situation into what their businesses are going to be in the future, but also there are businesses who are actively looking at developing their brands whilst this is happening. And I wholeheartedly agree with that. I think now is the time to say, for businesses to say, how digital is your business specifically in what we do? Are you suited for the future? Know that Primark, a brand that doesn't have any e-commerce, has gone from tens of millions of pounds worth of sales, hundreds of millions probably pounds worth of sales a week, to nothing. Right, that is a terrible set of circumstances. Well, now's the time to ask yourself: do we need a digital platform? Is our digital platform right? Can we communicate with our customers? And start looking at those big questions that will become normal and fit into the normal once this is over. And I think we're seeing this with a number of clients that are saying, yeah, that project that we're doing, perhaps we should. It's been sat on the back burner. We must look at our e-commerce journey. We must look at fixing our e-commerce. We must look at e-commerce. We're now working with some clients that are using this time to quickly solve those solutions and use technology beyond those big builds, those big heavy lifting infrastructure builds that take years, cost hundreds of millions, and often don't deliver a great deal. You go, look, how can we quickly get something up and running? Now, we're doing that with a number of clients. And I urge everybody on this call, if you want to come and talk to us about this afterwards, feel free. we're very happy to help and advise if need be.
And yeah, as you say, those wartime advancements, Balka, absolutely. And what about from a Group M perspective, Linda? You know, culturally within the agency, but as David was saying as well, with the clients as well. What are you seeing right now, and how have you seen that evolve over the last few weeks?
Well, to be clear, I don't interact with the client. I'm purely operational, so I wouldn't have a view or an opinion on that. I'm from a day-to-day perspective, and my world from an operations perspective, I'm just seeing there's been no slowdown at all. We are delivering the same kind of volumes from an operational perspective in technical transformation. So, but from a customer and client perspective, I wouldn't have a view on that because it's not my area.
I understand. So what I'd like to now sort of just look at a little bit is something sort of we touched on again as we were all talking about this as a group last night is what I think what we've seen, and this comes back to sort of a previous point made around some of the sort of marketing strategies we've seen coming out over the last few weeks. But one of the trends that we've sort of seen is around sort of caring more to help our kind of immediate community, our sort of microclimate around what is now our new universe kind of thing. Whether that's through, as Balco mentioned, now talking to his local butcher more, or utilising your nearest farm shop, and or whether it is the sort of more charitable cases, or looking at kind of what are the charities in my area that I can help. And I think it sort of really comes down to sort of purpose, really. What are the businesses and the brands that have a purpose that I can connect with, and we're definitely seeing that as our universities have sort of shrunk right down. And I think we mentioned this last night, Linda, around sort of we've always been sort of creatures of convenience. It's just our definition of convenience has changed, right? I mean, how have you seen that sort of affect your universe, even and how you're working on sort of that day to day, of life, as it were?
I think to unpack that into two separate things, if I may. I think the first bit is that my perspective hasn't closed down or shrunk in any way. It's in many respects it's opened up, because I'm on video conference for 12 hours a day and with lots of different people. So I feel much more enriched than I was, because before I was literally getting up, getting on the train, getting to work, going to work, wondering about getting something out of the freezer in the morning, forgetting to get something out of the freezer in the morning, getting home, there's nothing for supper, school uniforms got to be washed. And then I haven't seen my friends for 6 months, and so I need to do that. And then life is just, on go, running from being a working person to being a wife, to being a mother, to being a daughter, to being a sister, to being a friend. And this world, I feel much more enriched, because I'm not doing that hour and a half commute both ways. I'm here. My son is here. My husband is here. I can't see my mum, which is not great. But I feel much more connected to the world, because I am connecting to them. I'm listening more, I'm hearing more, because I've got that little bit more time to be present. I'm meeting new people, because I'm doing these sessions every day, just general drop-in sessions at work for people that just want to have a half-hour chat about nothing. So I'm meeting loads of new people all over the world, and understanding, how this is impacting them and their working life. So I feel, rather than my world, it compacting in a way and becoming close, it has from a physical perspective, but from a communications perspective, I feel much more enriched than I was before. So I want to try and think about how I hang on to that. And then there was a second part to the question, which has completely escaped me. Sorry.
No, I think it was more around sort of the I think it's the brands and the businesses and everything that we're now engaging with that we weren't before, and how that's much more on a micro level
Yeah,
as well.
absolutely.
And I think
is.
there's a lot to be said in the businesses that now, Tom the Butcher is now delivering to you, and that's something that perhaps you would never have done before, but now you are, and that in itself is a consumer behaviour that's changed. And
totally changed, and I can't see it going back to because
to the Friday night Asda shop, or
I even domestic products like kitchen cleaner. There's a local hardware store. So, and I've got to know Sophie that works in there, and Pat, who also works in there. They know my name now, and so I'm really pleased about that. And I love David's idea about them having to change their opening hours to accommodate working people, because once we all are back on the tubes, that's the other thing that consumer behaviour is going to change, isn't it? We're all going to be wearing masks and gloves to get into work.
And I think there's the kind of interesting question. I think we've all been kind of complicit in some respects in the last certainly for me 25 years, I guess, but certainly since sort of post-war machine of marketing. And I think it is an interesting question. Lots of things changed after big events, as I touched on earlier, the Black Death and World Wars and so on. But after the Great Fire of London, there were all these wonderful plans submitted to turn London into wonderfully wide avenues, and Christopher Wren submitted all these amazing plans. And everyone got very excited for a while, and then they rebuilt London, the city of London, just as it was before, hence the sort of higgledy-piggledy nature of the streets. And I think there is an interesting question here, and this is one for, the cynic in me kind of looks at big corporates and says, well, and it's challenging because they pay our bills and they pay our wages in some respects. But, be cautious of that, because those guys are powerful and have been doing this marketing lark for a long time, and human beings are fickle, and it's kind of it's nice to go and shop at the butcher's, but wait till Asda do a really good offer on chicken breasts that entices you back into the store a bit. Or the question is, I think, for the mass of Britain that is hardworking, is people that work for the NHS, people that work for the everyday functions of Britain, not us lot in marketing land. Will necessity force them back into those habits? And I think there's a really interesting question there. And for me, the top of that list is, at what point will we start to question the process of those that govern us, when someone says, should we give the NHS, all those hardworking nurses at the NHS, a pay rise? And the government says no. At that point, when do we start saying, well, hang on, that's not right, because we're all clapping outside on a Thursday night, but we don't want to give them a pay rise. So it'll be interesting to see what happens in those bigger events. And I think that there is that I'm hopeful, and I'm with Linda, that I hope that things change and we live a world that's a little bit more empathetic, a little bit more benevolent, a little bit more kind of caring. But then at the same time, I also know that some of our clients have factories that employ lots and lots of people, that build lots and lots of cars and lots of kitchens and lots of things like that, and they need to do that. Those things exist, and that machine operates to employ lots of those people, but also to serve the wider cause. And I think there's an interesting kind of tension and there.
Is it about community though, David? Does it come back to, it's not whether you're a big boy or a little boy? I mean that from a business scale perspective. Is it about creating community, and can big business be part of that community? Yes, of course. I mean, my brother works for The Range, which is a shop. Yep. He's on the shop floor and stacking shelves.
Yeah.
And they've completely pivoted their business so that they can open by selling food.
Yeah.
So they remain open, but they are definitely part of the community because they are employing people with special needs, like my brother. And so I think it's about, of course, I'm middle class now, and I can go and shop locally and pay the extra pound on a chicken breast and support a local business. But they're creating communities, so they're delivering to me because I can't go there. And I'm just wondering if it's whether or not the tension isn't between big and small. It's around how people create a community and purpose for people.
And that's really interesting because that's how, for instance, the traditional British corner shop was originally formed. It was originally formed to service a perimeter of families around that corner shop. You know, so that was the community, and the corner shop was at the heart of that, right?
Yeah. And the pub and the church
and the pub. Yes. Yeah, definitely.
I mean, I hope you're right, Linda. I really do. I hope that kind of community spirit is still it comes out. And for me, I think that the answer often lies in a balance and a blend of all of these things.
Yeah, it does.
Where we do find ourselves kind of, using the bigger brands when we need to, but actually looking at our locale and those brands, and you're right, we do it all the time. We go to pubs, right? They're often, kind of small businesses, and we go and we go and drink with our friends. We do those things. It doesn't need to be in a chain all the time, and I think there's an interesting point there. Going back to some of the questions that I think that some of the folks have asked about, kind of delivering innovation and doing those things. I wanted to touch a bit on some of the work that we're doing in terms of how we deliver innovation in this current climate, and some of the thoughts I had around, embracing those ideas that come out of left field a bit more. Now's the time perhaps that some of those stranger ideas are not so strange anymore. And testing and learning, and I know Jamie, you touched at the beginning on people, and we've talked about it throughout, that how consumer and human behavior will change, and I don't think many of us know how much it will change and in what direction, but it's something we're interested in doing at Tribal, and we're talking to a number of clients and partners at the moment about conducting some research where we go and talk to people and see what their behaviour is, possibly now, possibly through as we move throughout this process, and then afterwards. So if anyone out there is interested in learning more about that, do get in touch and participating in it, because I think there is we're seeing changes of behaviour that are unprecedented in something. TV viewing is massively up. Well, common sense tells you that we can't go out. So people, there's only so much kind of cake you can make. You need to sit down and eat it and watch something perhaps. And we're seeing that YouTube is up and home baking is up, and all of these things that might change behaviour long term. And we're interested in that and what that effect might be on brands, and that kind of questioning, I think, is an interesting time to now is an interesting time to start posing those questions. But what we're seeing is that innovation that we're producing for our clients, in some ways it's not innovative or innovation in the old sense of the word. It's actually just looking at new ways in which they can kind of reach out to their customers or communicate with their customers in this environment. And everyone kind of talks a lot about the IPA and many researchers talk about continuing to spend in this market, continuing to talk to your customers and so on. And I to a degree wholeheartedly agree with that, except change your message in some respects. And don't always do the sort of the not now advertising stuff, as Trevor Beatty once called it, where you do an ad for the sake of doing an ad because everyone else has done it. Do an ad that's true to your brand. Be authentic. Be honest about what you're doing. To Linda's point, the range. Go and talk about what you're doing, what your how you're changing communities, because that's an interesting thing. That will have a lot more power on your brand going forwards than some of the work that I've seen where it just felt like, oh God, we better do an ad because everyone else is, and there wasn't, and it was rushed. And I think there is that use innovation to get your message out there. It might not necessarily be above the line TV ad. It might be just changing your checkout process on your website, or in fact getting a checkout process in some respects. And that innovation that often used to be a bit scary because you might have had to go to the city and ask for a massive injection of cash. Well, it might not be so scary now because you can do a test quite cheaply, and it could be the foundation of what you might do in the future. And it often needn't be as daunting, perhaps, as we first think.
Thank you, David. Definitely. We've touched. We've got sort of one last question really before we sort of go to closing thoughts. I think we've just got time to look at this, and I think we've kind of touched on this in a few different ways. But one of the questions we had through from gentlemen on the call today was around incrementally changing the working world to suit a new harmony and balance with the natural world. And
great question.
And do we actually even care about that? And I think we've touched upon it in ways of, do we think that this change will be a long-term change, short-term change? Will we go back to a normality or blah, blah, but in that specific context of actually, I guess really I'm interpreting that as, will it be a work-life balance or a life-work balance, and how does that change? So specifically, maybe coming to yourself,
okay,
Linda,
you just
talking
need to
about
keep
that.
working, mate. Keep working.
Yeah. Oh, do I need to keep well? God damn it, David. No. I mean, Linda, from your perspective, changing that working world to suit this new harmony and balance. You touched on this earlier. What's your thoughts about that question?
I think it's a great question.
Yeah.
I just hope that we are more harmonious with each other and the world. I definitely feel like there's a sea change. Just people are being, well, you only have to read Twitter to know that people have changed their tone on there a little bit.
Yeah.
From an environmental perspective, I wouldn't have the authority to speak to that because I don't have any of the facts and figures in front of me. But from an anecdotal perspective, I can certainly attest to the fact that I can see less cars. There was something on the radio the other day that in India you can see the Himalayas for the first time in decades because people aren't out polluting. Whether that's true or fake news, I don't know, but I like the notion of it. I think I would be more precise in my answer if I just said I'm hopeful that question is true.
And David, your thoughts on that?
I've got a 7-year-old, right? It's wonderful. Like many of us, we've got lovely children, and I'm hopeful that this is an interesting wake-up call. How that manifests itself in I think there's this sort of paradox in many respects that the airline industry is a good example, right? It's on its knees at the moment. No one's flying. There's lots of planes parked all over the place. And the airline industry will be desperate to get us to go get on a plane again. Yeah. Well, there's an interesting paradox there because, I want to get on a plane. I'd quite like to go somewhere. I'd like to go to California and, enjoy myself in the sunshine. But the question is, should one do that? Is it right to do that? Because we're all witnessing that the lovely, clear skies over every city in the world. And yet, will that image fade and we go, yeah, but I want to go to Portugal or whatever, right? For £69, cheapest chips with Ryanair. There's an interesting kind of paradox there, and yet I hope, and I too, like Linda, I'm not experienced enough or or know the facts and figures. But I do have a 7-year-old, and I'm hopeful that the world is just as vibrant and wonderful and accessible within a framework of that doesn't destroy the planet going forwards. And I think I hope that marketeers and brands and those of us that work with those brands can consider that in how we perhaps exit this situation, because it's not just about sort of face masks and hand gel. It's about, you know, how we live our lives in a bit more of a sustainable way. It's a really big question, and I'm hopeful that we can make a difference. However, I also, the cynic in me knows the power of banks and big business and government and all of these things, and we've built society, and certainly in the Western world, on consumerism, and there's an interesting paradox there, I think.
Interesting. So we're kind of entering the sort of final 10 minutes here. So I'm actually the same gentleman who posed that question has and actually feedback from Muniv there is, okay, well answered. I admire your bravery in tackling the question I posed.
Thanks, Muniv.
And Muniv has actually submitted another question, which I think I will use to frame your closing thoughts, if that's okay. Muniv's asked sort of what changes are we specifically seeing in communications with people and the world, and what platforms are booming and which ones are emerging now. So I suppose I'll ask that question to both individually, and if maybe as well, just how that sort of wraps up into what I suppose would be your final bullet points as your top key points of advice that you would give to the brands on the call today. And Linda, we'll start with yourself.
I've just written myself some bullets. I think I would say remain thoughtful. Find that space that we have created for ourselves while we're in this situation. Keep that space. Feel every day that you're enriching yourself, because they'll by that very notion you'll be enriching your customers. And continue to observe, because it's by observing that we'll see change and be open to change, rather than it being something that's terrifying, because it can be. But it's also enormously powerful, both for ourselves individually, but also for business too. So if I would just to recap, is to remain thoughtful, keep enriching, keep finding the space that we have now.
Very, very. That's hit me deep.
Oh,
God. Yeah. Follow that, David.
Thanks, Linda. I think what she said. No, I think there's to answer Munib's question. I think the changes we're seeing are that with a number of our clients, the old-fashioned or the well-trodden paths that we created before this event, should we say, particularly in retail, where the feeling was that you would send a customer to a shop to buy something, A has gone out of the window, but B, when we return, I think for me the changes are, how can we adapt and still offer the same services to people should this happen again, or indeed if behaviour changes to the extent that we don't need to have either A, as many shops, B, as many kind of points of interaction. And the car industry is changing dramatically. Do you need as many retailers? Can you sell someone a car online and then deliver it to their house? And can you then come out to their house and service it rather than them come to you? Now, that's a profound question if you run a lot of dealerships. But also, if consumers are saying, well, actually, I want to do it differently. Well, I think those businesses that will thrive are the ones that start to answer some of those questions and adapt. And it's not either or, it's about having a blend. And I think those are the questions that we're starting to answer rapidly now for some of our clients. But also, I think it's about how we're looking at human behaviour. Will people travel as much? What will holidaying in Britain look like in 5 years' time post this? Because it might be that lots of people do want to holiday in Britain. Well, we might want different sets of servicing, different ways to travel, different kind of levels of service, and so on. How all of that changes and adapts, I think, is fascinating. And for me, the important things are: go and have a good look at your brand, what it stands for, and how new technology can help magnify that and do it in such a way that is compelling for your customers.
What a perfect note to end on. Thank you very much. So listen, we're sort of coming to time. So I just wanted to make sure we wrapped up in good amount of time, just in case anybody had a hard stop, another call to get onto. I think everyone will agree with me that it's been really interesting hearing from David and Linda today. For those of you who this is a first time event for, please sort of go back onto our site where you would have seen this and sign up for the future topics if any of them jump out as being sort of interesting and relevant as well. You'll be receiving some emails from our team after this today, just giving sort of a wrap up and a summary, and just sort of some information on how you can access the recording of this today. So please do look out for that. We do have a Slack channel set up as well, where all of our guests can join that and collaborate with peers from around industries. It's a very exclusive group, so please please feel free to join. Obviously, give us a follow on LinkedIn and Instagram, Tribal Worldwide London, and use our hashtag Total Experience if you'd like to share any thoughts on this morning's session. And of course, as David has mentioned, if there's anything that's jumped out to you today as sparked some thinking, please do reach out to myself. We can follow up in a more one-to-one environment, see if there's anything we can do to help everyone through this, because I think everyone will agree the only way we're going to all get through this is together. So thank you, Nicola, thank you, Linda, thank you everyone for coming into the chat now. Yeah, Munib, thank you very much, and listen, have a great day, have a obviously most importantly stay safe and keep well, and we really look forward to welcoming you on a future event, perhaps next week or week after. And again, thank you, David and Linda, for giving up your time today.
You're welcome.
Pleasure.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank
Cheers.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye
Thanks
now,
all.
everyone.
Bye.